Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing a full breakdown of the actual, hidden machinery behind human behavior. We're using James Clear's phenomenal framework and atomic habits. If you've ever felt totally stuck trying to build a routine, well, it really just comes down to understanding this biology. So we're going to look at the exact frameworks and the super practical steps you can take to literally rewire your routines. Let's get into it. I want you to start by just imagining what it would take to improve by a single, tiny 1%. It doesn't really sound like much, does it? But consider the completely unbelievable story of Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team. For over a century, this team was, well, incredibly mediocre. They'd won almost nothing. In fact, bike manufacturers literally refused to sell them gear because they didn't want their brand associated with losing. No way, right? But when Brailsford took over, he didn't aim for these massive overhauls. Instead, he just looked for a 1% margin of improvement in absolutely everything. They redesigned the bike seats. They rubbed alcohol on tires for better grip. They tested out different massage gels for faster recovery, gave the riders heated jackets, and get this, they even hired a surgeon to teach them the absolute best way to wash their hands so they wouldn't catch colds. Just tiny 1% adjustments, everywhere.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the math behind the strategy is absolutely mind-blowing. If you get just 1% better every single day, you don't just end up a little bit better. Because of the way compounding works, getting 1% better every day for an entire year makes you exactly 37 times better by the time you're done. That is the incredible power of small habits. And conversely, if you get 1% worse every day, you decline almost all the way down to zero. Going back to our British cycling team, those tiny 1% changes accumulated so effectively that they went on to win an astounding 5 Tour de France titles in 6 years and absolutely dominated the Olympic Games. The math absolutely works.
Section 1. The power of 1%. Success is really the product of daily habits, not these rare, once-in-a-lifetime transformations. But here is why sticking to those habits is so incredibly hard. It's called the plateau of latent potential. Think of an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing cold room. You can literally see your breath. It's 25 degrees. The room slowly warms up. 26, 27, 28. You're putting in the time. The room is heating up, but nothing is happening to the ice cube. 29, 30. Still nothing. Then it hits 32 degrees, and suddenly the ice melts. A 1-degree shift, seemingly no different than the ones right before it, triggers a massive change. That's your habits. Massive results are the product of delayed, accumulated efforts. When people quit running after a week just because they don't see weight loss, it's really because they haven't broken through that plateau yet.
Section 2. Systems are more important than goals.
To push through that plateau, we need a complete paradigm shift. As the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams, brilliantly pointed out, focusing entirely on the finish line is actually setting yourself up for failure. You got to focus on the process, not the outcome. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the illusion of progress. Imagine you have a really messy room. You set a goal to clean it, you summon the energy, and you clean it. Boom, goal achieved. But if you maintain the exact same sloppy, disorganized habits that caused the messy room in the first place, guess what? Next week, you have a messy room again. You treated a symptom without curing the actual cause. Achieving a goal only changes your life for that specific moment. Fixing the underlying system, that changes your trajectory forever.
But here's the real wait what moment about this concept. Think about it. Every single athlete at the Olympic Games wants to win the gold medal. Every candidate applying for a job wants the job, right? So if winners and losers have the exact same goals, then the goal itself absolutely cannot be what differentiates the winners from the losers. It was the British cycling team's system of continuous marginal improvements that won them the Tour de France, not the simple fact that they wanted to win. Section 3. Changing your identity. So if we need to change our systems, how do we actually make that stick? Well, we have to go a bit deeper into the psychology of change. True behavior change isn't just about what you do. It's about who you fundamentally believe you are. Imagine two people trying to resist a cigarette. The first one says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Sounds totally reasonable, right? But that person still identifies as a smoker who's trying to do something difficult. They're hoping their behavior changes while their underlying beliefs stay exactly the same. But the second person, they decline by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." And this brilliantly illustrates a profound shift in identity. It's a small distinction, but massive in impact. Smoking was part of their past, not their present. The habit simply aligns with who they already are.
To really bring this home, consider the story of an entrepreneur named Brian Clark. Brian had chewed his nails his entire life. It was this deeply ingrained nervous habit. He'd tried sheer willpower and it never worked for long. But then he did something kind of unusual. He asked his wife to book him a professional manicure. For the first time in his life, he looked down and saw genuinely healthy, beautiful nails. He felt this sudden surge of pride. And that pride changed everything. He never bit his nails again because keeping them nice became a point of pride. It literally became part of his identity.
If you look at the root of the word identity, it literally comes from the Latin words for being and repeated. Your identity is essentially your repeated being. You aren't born with preset beliefs about yourself. Every single time you write a page, you're casting a vote for the identity of a writer. Every time you go to the gym, you're casting a vote for the identity of an athlete. You are literally building your identity vote by vote through your daily habits.
Section 4. 4 stages of a habit.
Now that we know why habits matter so much for our identity, let's look at the actual neurology behind them. To understand this, we're going to travel all the way back to 1889. Psychologist Edward Thorndike was conducting these experiments on animal behavior. He built these puzzle boxes and placed cats inside them. At first, the cats would flail around completely randomly, pawing at corners, sniffing the edges, until accidentally they'd step on a lever that opened a door, letting them out to get a bowl of food. Thorndike recorded the times. During those first few trials, it took the cats about 1.5 minutes to escape. But as they repeated the process, the brain linked the action to the reward. By the end, they were escaping in just 6.3 seconds. Their brains completely automated the escape process. And this is exactly why our brains form habits, to save precious cognitive energy by automating solutions to reoccurring problems.
From those cats and decades of subsequent neuroscience, we now know that every single habit breaks down into a 4-step loop. First, there's a cue, a trigger that tells your brain to initiate a behavior. Second is a craving, the motivational force behind the habit. Like, you don't actually crave a cigarette, you crave the relief it provides. Third is the response, the actual habit you perform. And fourth is the reward, the end goal that satisfies the craving. Without the first 3 steps, a behavior just won't happen. And without all 4, it will never be repeated.
So the crucial point is that if we want to change our behavior, we simply need to manipulate this loop. This gives us the 4 laws of behavior change. To build a good habit, you must make the cue obvious, make the craving attractive, make the response easy, and make the reward satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you just invert the laws. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. It's a brilliant universal framework.
Section 5. Formula for new habits.
How do we actually engineer our environments for inevitable success instead of relying on pure willpower? Well, to master the first law, make it obvious, we can look at the Tokyo train system. Train drivers there perform this incredibly bizarre-looking ritual called pointing and calling. When approaching a signal, the driver physically points at it and calls out, "Signal is green." They point at the speedometer and call out the exact speed. It seems kind of silly, but it drags automatic subconscious habits right up into the conscious mind. By making their actions completely obvious, this system reduces errors by an astonishing 85%.
You can do this in your own life using a habit scorecard. Because our habits are so automatic, we often don't even realize we're doing them. So, write down a list of everything you do from the moment you wake up. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, brush teeth, make coffee. Next to each one, place a plus, minus, or equal sign based on whether it's a good, bad, or neutral habit. Don't judge yourself here, just observe. Does this action cast a vote for the identity you want to have? This brings your automatic routines out of the shadows. Once you're aware of your habits, you need a solid plan to build new ones. Studies have shown that people who just vaguely plan to exercise more almost always fail. But people who create an implementation intention have massive success rates. The formula is beautifully simple. I will do this specific action at this exact time in this exact location. Like, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. You completely remove the need to make a decision in the moment. The cue is explicitly locked in. There's also this incredibly powerful psychological phenomenon we can leverage called the Diderot effect. It's named after the French philosopher Denis Diderot. He lived his whole life in poverty until he suddenly received a large sum of money and bought one beautiful, exquisite scarlet robe. But the robe was so nice that his old desk looked terrible next to it. So he bought a new desk, then a new chair, then a new rug. One single purchase triggered a whole spiral of entirely new behaviors because human actions naturally chain together. Let's move to and see how this builds, because we can use this chain reaction to our advantage with one of the most effective strategies ever created, habit stacking. Instead of pairing your new habit with the time and location, you use the Diderot effect to your advantage by stacking a brand new habit directly onto something you already do automatically every single day. The formula goes like this. After my current habit, I will do my new habit. After I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately put on my running shoes. You're basically using the momentum of your existing life to power your new goals. When you put all of this together, when you really understand the compounding math of 1%, the plateau of potential, the 4 laws, and the systems of habit stacking, you realize something pretty amazing. You are the ultimate architect of your life. Your habits matter not just because they get you better results, but because they can actually change your deepest beliefs about yourself. You become your habits. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to carry with you. Look at the small routines you engaged in today. Based purely on those actions, who are you becoming?